If you're not intentional about your habits, that means you're unintentionally building a life you'll want to escape from. Fortunately, the 8 tiny habits I'm about to share with you took me from being completely scattered to being financially free for the rest of my life with more clarity, confidence, and freedom than I've ever had. But this kind of change doesn't happen by accident. It starts with the small, consistent actions that quietly reshape your life. So if you're ready to stop living on autopilot and start building a life full of more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible, this is how. So waiting until things feel right is one of the most common ways people stay stuck, because when you're always waiting for the perfect plan, the right timing, or the moment when you finally feel ready, you end up doing nothing at all. Because the truth is, nobody feels ready when they're just getting started. That's why the people who make progress aren't the ones with all the answers, but the ones who end up taking action anyway, knowing that they'll figure it out as they go. And that first move doesn't have to be big or bold, it just has to happen. So you can start with something as simple as opening a new credit card or a new savings account. The important thing is that you take action, because once you're in motion, even if it's messy, you start building something more valuable than a perfect plan. You build momentum, and that's what turns hesitation into habit and uncertainty into clarity. But then once you're moving, the next thing that matters is what you're actually working toward, because putting in effort is great, but if there's no clear goal, all that momentum just kind of floats around without going anywhere. That's why one of the simplest and most effective habits you can build is writing down one clear financial goal at the start of every month, something specific enough to act on, or small enough to finish, and clear enough to guide your decisions without overthinking. Because when your goal is locked in, your spending stops being reactive and your effort finally has a direction. So instead of casually saying you'll try to save more, your goal becomes save $500 by the 30th of this month. Or instead of I'll cut back, it becomes I'll only order food delivery once a week this month. And once that target is clear, the pressure drops, because now you're not guessing what you need to do next. You already know what winning looks like. And it doesn't need to be something super deep. You just have to write one goal and commit to it, and then let it shape your choices for the next 30 days. Because that one habit alone builds momentum faster than you'd think, because every win, even the small ones, makes the next step easier to follow through on. But still, a clear goal still won't stick if your day is filled with distractions and decision overload. So the next step is about clearing that noise before it pulls you off track. And this is where simplifying your day-to-day choices comes in, because the less energy you have to spend deciding what to eat, where, plan, or respond to, the more energy you have left for the goals you actually care about. And you don't need to change your entire routine, you just need to cut the low stakes decisions that drain you before lunch. So think of things like a basic weekday meal plan, or setting a recurring time each week to knock out errands or review your finances. Having these small systems in place don't just save you time, they protect your mental energy from getting chewed up by the stuff that doesn't move the needle. And that's the real win here. When everyday choices become automatic, your mind stops spinning its wheels on them. Suddenly, you've got space for the things that matter. Things like saving more, leveling up your skills, or making smarter financial decisions when the stakes are much higher. So it's not about becoming rigid or robotic, it's about clearing the mental clutter so you're not stuck using your best energy on the least important stuff. When your brain isn't busy juggling tiny decisions, you start seeing exactly where that energy can actually take you. And one of the best places to put that energy is into building skills, upgrading how you think, or just learning something that makes your next move easier. Because the truth is, your ability to grow will always outpace your ability to cut costs. That's why the people who move faster financially aren't just saving harder, they're learning faster, thinking clearer, and improving the one thing that affects everything else, themselves. And it doesn't have to be some expensive certification or paid course. You just have to spend a little time each day getting smarter. It could be 20 minutes a day of watching something useful, reading a few pages of that book you've been putting off, or surrounding yourself with people who challenge the way you think. The point is, every time you upgrade how you think or what you know, you make every other habit easier. And that's what keeps your progress from stalling. But knowing more doesn't mean much if you're still handling your money manually, forgetting transfers, and hoping there's something left over by the end of the month. And that's where this next habit does the heavy lifting for you. Because when your money depends on memory, motivation, or how disciplined you feel, it becomes one more thing to worry about. And that's exactly where most people fail. That's why automating your money completely changes the game. Instead of hoping you've got money left over after you've paid your essentials, you flip that script and put yourself in the driver's seat. And a great place to start is by setting up an auto transfer from your main checking account to a separate savings account the moment you get paid. So even a small fixed amount of $50 or $100, whatever feels comfortable, will make a difference when it moves first, not last. invest. And then do the same for your investments. If you use an investing platform or an app that lets you schedule recurring buys, then use that so that your investing is set it and forget it. You can also automate bill payments, subscriptions, and even reminders for irregular expenses so you're never scrambling or falling behind. Because once that system's in place, you'll stop wondering where your money went because it already went where it was supposed to. And when the essentials are handled automatically, you stop relying on discipline and start building real momentum. But momentum without awareness can still lead to waste, and that's where the next habit keeps you in check. Because reviewing your spending once a week is how you keep your system working. Because even with automation in place, your money can still slip through the cracks if you're not checking where it's actually going. And the reality is, most people don't check. They just guess, assume, or hope that everything's fine. But if you're not seeing your numbers regularly, then you're not really in control. And so the habit here is simple. Once a week, open your banking app and scroll through your recent transactions. There's no need for spreadsheets or overthinking, just a quick look at what came in, what went out, and what didn't really need to happen. Because the sooner you spot what's out of line, the easier it is to adjust without messing up your progress. And keep in mind that this isn't about tracking every single dollar. It's about staying aware. And you're not reviewing this to be strict on yourself. You're doing it so that your money stays connected to what actually matters. And the more often you check in, the fewer surprises you'll see, and the easier it is to make better decisions moving forward. And when you start doing that consistently, you naturally want to learn more because money stops feeling like something you need to avoid and starts becoming something you actually understand. That's why the next step is learning how money works, because the more you understand it, the less confusing it feels and the easier it is to make the kind of decisions that move you forward without second guessing yourself every time. But you don't need to read full-on finance books or become an expert. You can just set aside 1 hour a week to learn something useful. That could be a short YouTube video like this one, or a Reddit thread where you can gather opinions from hundreds of people at once. It doesn't have to be particularly deep either. It just has to be frequent. And here's why it works. The more you learn, the less financial decisions will feel overwhelming, and you'll stop avoiding the stuff that used to stress you out. So you can now ask better questions, recognize patterns, and get faster at figuring everything out. Of course, this habit doesn't fix everything overnight, but it will quietly upgrade how you think about money behind the scene. And the more your mindset starts to shift, the easier it is to notice what's helping you grow and what's quietly holding you back. But of course, learning isn't just about the content, it's also about your environment. Because if you're always around people who don't care, don't try, or don't believe that change is possible, then it's only a matter of time before their mindset becomes yours. And that's where this next shift happens. Because if everyone around you treats making progress like it's optional, or they joke about being broke like that's just how life works, then it becomes a lot harder to believe that building real financial freedom is even possible. And so this last habit is about curating your surroundings, which often means being more intentional about who you listen to. And so this is going to mean spending more time in conversations and spaces where people treat money with purpose, where saving, earning more, and investing are normal, not weird. Because when those are the fundamental habits of everyone around you, they become a lot easier for you to practice too. So pay attention to what the people around you are saying, because if you're constantly taking in content that pushes consumption, stress, or distraction, then your brain stays stuck in reaction mode. But when you fill your space with voices that challenge you to do better, it gets harder to stay the same. You don't need to build the perfect circle, you just need to stop surrounding yourself with the mindset that holds you back. Because once your environment supports the direction you're heading in, everything else starts moving faster, even when it still feels slow. So now you know how a few tiny habits can completely change your financial trajectory, but remember, it's not about doing more, it's about getting more from the things you're already doing. And the exact same principle applies when it comes to building wealth. You can work harder than everyone else, but if you're not working smarter, you'll never get ahead. So to learn how the wealthiest people out there apply this exact insight to get 5 to 10 times more from their money as everyone else, watch this video next.